command figures, where power becomes legacy.
Hello, we are back here with Command Figures.
Hello.
Today, we are looking at a figure who, for a long, long time, was treated almost like a punchline in the West. You know the image, the guy with a chest full of self-bestowed medals, the bizarre letters to the Queen, the conqueror of the British Empire.
It's the last King of Scotland image, the buffoon, the clown tyrant.
Exactly. But while a lot of the world was laughing at the memes, the reality on the ground in Uganda was a nightmare. Absolute terror.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Idi Amin Dada, and our mission today is to strip away that Hollywood caricature and trace the strictly chronological rise and fall of the man himself. We want to understand how an assistant cook in the colonial army managed to bring an entire nation to its knees.
And to do that, we're bypassing the sensationalism and going straight to the archives. We've got detailed historical analyses from Ohio State University and Yale Scholarship Online, contemporary records of the Entebbe raid, and the extensive obituary and retrospective from The Guardian.
So let's start at the very beginning. Because, you don't just wake up one day and become a dictator. Where does Idi Amin actually come from?
Well, even his origins are a bit of a smokescreen, which feels intentional. He was born around 1925 in the West Nile district, up near the borders of Sudan and Congo. He was from the Kakwa tribe. And the first crucial piece of context here is his education, or really the lack of it. He had almost no formal schooling.
Which makes his entry into the King's African Rifles, the KAR, interesting. He joins the British colonial army in 1946. But not as a soldier at first. He was an assistant cook.
That's right. He started in the kitchen, but he didn't stay there long. I mean, you have to picture this man. He was massive.
Physically imposing.
Absolutely. A towering figure, and eventually the heavyweight boxing champion of Uganda. And while the British officers noted that he wasn't book smart, some even called him slow, he had what they described as peasant cunning.
That feels like a very colonial, backhanded compliment.
It is, but it also explains his rise. The British didn't want a philosopher. They wanted an enforcer. Amin was eager, strong, and willing to do the dirty work. He figured out the hierarchy very, very quickly.
I also heard this story that he fought in Burma during World War II. Is there any truth to that?
That's a key part of his myth-making. He claimed that constantly to build up this warrior credibility.
But it's not real.
No. The service records we have show he enlisted after the war had already ended. It's one of the first of many lies he used to inflate his own legend.
So he's climbing the ranks by being the British Army's hammer. But there's an incident in 1962, right on the cusp of independence, that really seems to set the template for his rule, the Turkana Massacre.
This is the foreshadowing event. Amin is a commissioned officer by this point, commanding the 4th KAR. He's sent to Kenya to deal with cattle rustlers. Now, standard procedure would be arrests, maybe some skirmishes. Amin went a different way.
Different is putting it mildly. The reports are gruesome.
They are. The sources detail torture, beatings, and even reports that victims were buried alive. It wasn't a police action, it was a slaughter.
And the British knew about this.
Oh, they absolutely knew. They exhumed bodies. The authorities in Nairobi wanted to court-martial him immediately. But this is where politics just takes over.
What happened?
Well, Uganda is months away from independence, and the administration decides they can't possibly prosecute one of the very few black commissioned officers right before the handover.
So it was just politically inconvenient.
Inconvenient is the word. And it wasn't just the British. Milton Obote, who was about to become the first prime minister, also chose to look the other way. He thought Amin was a blunt instrument he could control.
A deal with the devil that would come back to bite him.
Massively.
So by 1971, the relationship has soured. Obote is in charge, and Amin is his top general, but things are falling apart.
Completely. Obote started realizing Amin was a liability. There was money missing from army funds, and a murder investigation into a Brigadier Okoya was pointing right at Amin.
So Obote was moving against him.
Yes. By January 1971, Obote was preparing to have Amin arrested.
But he made the classic mistake. He left the country.
He went to a Commonwealth conference in Singapore. And on January 25, 1971, while the cat was away, Amin seized power.
Now, here's the part that I find so surprising.
Yeah.
You'd think a military coup would be terrifying, but the sources say people were celebrating.
There was dancing in the streets of Kampala. You have to remember, Obote's regime had become deeply unpopular. He'd abolished the traditional kingdoms. He had a secret police. People were tired.
So they saw Amin as a liberator.
They saw this smiling, charismatic, big man soldier and thought he was the answer.
And the West didn't hate it either, did they?
Not at all. The British Foreign Office and the Israelis saw Amin as a friend of the West. They thought he'd be a stabilizing influence. So there's a famous internal memo where a British official dismisses him as a nice footballing type.
A nice footballing type. That assessment aged about as poorly as possible.
A catastrophic misjudgment.
So 1972 rolls around, the honeymoon is over. This is where we get the turn to tyranny and what he called his economic war.
The mask slipped very, very fast. Amin started purging the army almost immediately. He created these organizations with terrifyingly bureaucratic names. The Public Safety Unit, the State Research Bureau.
But their job wasn't bureaucratic.
No, their job was simple. Eliminate anyone loyal to the old regime. They began systematically slaughtering soldiers from the Akoli and Longi tribes who were seen as Obote's people.
But the event that really grabbed global headlines was the expulsion of the Asians. This wasn't just a political purge, this was something else entirely.
It was August 1972. Amin announced that Allah had come to him in a dream and told him to expel the Asians. We're talking about 80,000 South Asians, mostly of Indian descent, many of whose families had been in Uganda for generations.
And the rhetoric he used, calling them bloodsuckers.
It's classic populist scapegoating. He accused them of hoarding wealth, of sabotaging the economy, and he gave them 90 days to get out.
And get out meant leave with nothing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It was called Operation Mafuta Mingi. Departing Asians were allowed to take just $120. Imagine that. Your business, your house, your life. And you leave with pocket change.
I can't.
And the sources recount these horrific scenes at the airport and checkpoints, theft, sexual violence, soldiers just looting people as they fled.
And the economic fallout must have been immediate. You can't just remove the entire merchant class and expect the lights to stay on.
It was economic suicide. These are the people running the factories, the supply chains, the shops. Amin confiscated nearly 6,000 firms and farms. And who did he give them to?
Not economists, I'm guessing.
He gave them to his cronies, to soldiers, people who had never run a business in their lives. Manufacturing output just plummeted. Basic goods vanished from shelves. The economy didn't just stumble, it collapsed.
I remember reading about the specific goods disappearing. Sugar, salt, matches. The basics of life just went away.
Exactly. And that's when the paranoia deepens. And it's also when the West starts treating him like a joke, right?
Yeah.
The buffoon narrative takes hold.
Right. He's sending these bizarre telegrams to world leaders, offering to become the King of Scotland.
Which is objectively funny if you ignore the context. But while the Western media was laughing at his grammar, Ugandans were dying. The Clown Act was a distraction that brings us to the mid-70s, the period the sources call the state of blood.
The numbers are just staggering. The International Commission of Jurists estimated up to 300,000 deaths. Amnesty International went as high as 500,000. How do you even maintain control with that level of violence?
You create an atmosphere of total, unpredictable fear. And for that, we need to talk about the State Research Bureau, the SRB. It wasn't an intelligence agency in the normal sense. It was a torture and kidnapping machine.
They had that euphemism, the car accident.
It became a dark joke in Uganda. If a prominent figure criticized Amin, the next day it would be announced they had died in a car accident. But the bodies would be found riddled with bullets or burnt or floating in the Nile.
And no one was safe. He went after the institutions of the state itself.
That's a great way to put it. He was dismantling the state. In 1972, the Chief Justice, Benedicto Kiwanuka, was dragged right out of his chambers from his own court by plainclothes agents, never seen again.
That sends a message to every other judge in the country.
It says the law doesn't exist here. And then in 1977, he went even further. He arrested the Anglican Archbishop, Janani Luwum, who had been critical of the regime's excesses.
And let me guess the official cause of death.
A car crash. The government claimed he tried to overpower the driver, but when the body was released to the family, it was full of bullets.
You don't kill an archbishop without the world noticing.
That was a turning point. It showed there were absolutely no guardrails left.
Okay, I have to ask about the rumors that always surround him. the cannibalism, the heads in the freezer. Is that real, or is that just part of the myth?
It's complicated. The sources are careful here. They suggest that while there's no definitive forensic proof he practiced cannibalism, Amin wanted people to believe he did.
It was a tool.
Exactly, psychological warfare. He once famously told a reporter that human flesh was too salty for his taste.
My God, even if it's a joke, it's a terrifying one.
It is. He cultivated that mystique intentionally. He wanted to be the boogeyman.
Control through nightmare. Okay, let's move to 1976, the Entebbe raid. This is probably the one event most people know about.
It's the defining international moment of his regime. It starts with the hijacking of Air France Flight 139 by the PFLP and German revolutionary cells.
And they flew to Entebbe, Uganda.
Because they knew they'd be welcome. By this point, Amin, who started as a friend of Israel, was firmly aligned with the PLO and Gaddafi.
So the plane lands, and Ayman is there.
He personally welcomed the roadjackers. He provided Ugandan troops to guard the hostages. He was completely complicit. And then came the segregation. Jewish and Israeli passengers were separated from the others. A terrifying echo.
And then came Operation Thunderbolt.
July 3rd and 4th. One of the most audacious military rescue missions in history. Israeli commandos flew 4,000 kilometers, landed at Entebbe in the middle of the night, stormed the terminal, and rescued 102 hostages.
But it wasn't without cost.
No. The commander of the unit, Yonatan Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu's brother, was killed. All the hijackers were killed, and about 45 Ugandan soldiers. And they destroyed a big chunk of the Ugandan Air Force on the ground.
A massive humiliation for him.
Huge. And because he couldn't fight the Israelis, he took his anger out on the helpless. And this is the tragic footnote often left out of the story. Dora Bloch.
Yes, the 74-year-old hostage.
She had choked on some food before the raid and was taken to a hospital in Kampala. She wasn't at the airport when the commando struck.
So what happened to her?
When Amin found out about the raid, he went into a rage. He ordered her execution. Plainclothes men dragged her from her hospital bed. She was murdered and her body was dumped.
Just pure petty vengeance.
And it didn't stop there. He unleashed a crackdown on Kenyans in Uganda because Kenya had allowed the Israeli planes to refuel. Hundreds were killed in retaliation.
It shows how fragile his ego was. And that fragility led to his downfall. So the Kajira War. Why did he start a war he couldn't possibly win?
By 1978, the walls were closing in. The economy was dead, he had no money to pay the army, and loyalty was fracturing. There were mutinies.
So he pulled the oldest trick in the dictator playbook.
Distraction. He needed an external enemy. In late 1978, he invaded the Kagera salient in Tanzania and annexed it.
Bad move.
A terrible mistake. Julius Nyerere, the president of Tanzania, was a serious statesman. He mobilized the Tanzanian army, and crucially, he united all the various groups of Ugandan exiles.
So you have the Tanzanian army and motivated Ugandans marching north. But Amin had friends, didn't he?
He called in favors. Muammar Gaddafi in Libya sent thousands of troops to try and save him.
Did they make a difference?
Not really. The sources note the Libyans were totally ill-equipped for jungle warfare. They were routed.
So the conqueror of the British Empire didn't make a last stand?
Not at all. Kampala fell on April 11th, 1979. Amin didn't go down fighting. He ran.
Where'd he go?
First to Libya. But eventually he settled in Saudi Arabia.
And this is the final unjust chapter. Exile. You'd expect a trial. Something. For a man who may have killed 500,000 people.
And that's the injustice of it. The Saudi royal family granted him asylum on one condition. He had to stay out of politics and keep his mouth shut.
And he just lived there for decades.
Until 2003, in a villa in Jeddah, learned Arabic, watched sports on TV. He lived a quiet, comfortable life.
I found one detail really bizarre. He supposedly became a fruitarian.
Yes, in his later years. He reportedly ate so many oranges he got the nickname Dr. Jaffa. It's such a mundane, almost comical end for a man responsible for so much death. An old man in a villa eating oranges.
It's deeply disturbing. He died in a bed, not a prison cell.
August 16, 2003. Multiple organ failure. He never faced a trial. He never answered for Kiwanuka or Lumum or Dora Bloch.
So when we look back at all of this, what's the takeaway? We have the meme and we have the monster.
I think the lesson is that we can't let the buffoon mask hide the butcher. The West laughed at him for far too long while he was dismantling a country. He destroyed the social fabric of Uganda, its intelligentsia, its economy. The country took decades to recover.
It's also a lesson in how fragility masquerades as strength. He ruled by terror because he had no other tools. He broke things because he didn't know how to build them.
Precisely. And it forces us to ask, are we making that same mistake today? Are we dismissing dangerous figures as just clowns until it's too late?
That is a heavy thought to leave you with. From the cookhouse to the coup, and finally to that quiet villa in Jeddah. It's a story we need to remember accurately.
Absolutely. A dark chapter, but a necessary one.
Well, that is all for our deep dive into the life of Idi Amin. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to click like and subscribe, and write your opinion in the comments section.